We are a peaceful people. Struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble. Just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere. Make no mistake, 'cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, the time on it. Though we may criticize it, this is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. So we ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. We are a peaceful people. Struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble. Just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere. Make no mistake, 'cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, the time on it. Though we may criticize it, this is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. So we ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. We are a peaceful people, struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble, just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know, we gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here, and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere, make no mistake. Cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, take time on it. Though we may criticize it, this is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. So we ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. We are a peaceful people, struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble, just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know, we gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here, and they live and die here, and we ain't moving nowhere. Make no mistake, 'cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one rice, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, the time on it. Though we may criticize it, this is our own, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one grass, not a blade of grass. So we ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. We are a peaceful people, struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble, just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know, we gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here, and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere. Make no mistake, 'cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, the time on it. Though we may criticize it, this is our own, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one grass, not a blade of grass. So we ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. We are a peaceful people. Struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble. Just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one karage, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere. Make no mistake, 'cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one karage, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo. Take time on it, though we may criticize it. This is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right, so we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one karage, not a blade of grass. So we ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one karage, not a blade of grass. We are a peaceful people. Struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble. Just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one karage, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere. Make no mistake, 'cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we.
Honorable members, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, I declare this 96th sitting of the National Assembly of the 12th Parliament of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana to be duly constituted and in session. The clerk will lead us in prayers.
Almighty God, we are here gathered together do most humbly beseech thee to guide us in all our consultations, so that we may together build a land where knowledge is free, where the mind is without fear, and the head is held high, and where words come from the depth of truth. Grant us, O God, thine aid and guidance, so that we may deal justly with the several causes that come before us, laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and personal preferences, so that the result of our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion, the preservation of justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the President, and the peace and prosperity of Guyana. Grant us, O God, the vision so to lead, that all the people of this fair land may enter into that state of brotherhood and unity, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action.
Please be seated. Hold on, sir.
She was just here. Yes.
Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Clerk.
Messages from the President. Announcements by the Speaker.
Good morning once again, honorable members. Honorable members, today we have students and teachers from Cummings Lodge Secondary and to my far left, Apex Academy. Let's join in welcoming special recognition to our school bell. Today is the first day we are starting earlier than the earliest, and more particularly to recognize that the school bell has actually made TikTok. Mr. Clerk?
Presentation of petitions. Presentation of papers and reports, etc. Reports from committees. Oral questions without notice. Questions and notice. Statements by ministers, including policy statements. Personal explanations. Requests for leave to move the adjournment of the National Assembly on definite matters of urgent public importance. Motions relating to the business or sittings of the National Assembly and moved by a minister. Introduction of bills.
Honorable Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance and the public service.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise, sir, to present to this Honorable House the Income Tax Amendment Bill 2025, Bill 2 of 2025. A bill intituled An Act to Amend the Income Tax Act. And I move that the bill be read the first time. Thank you very much.
Time.
Income Tax Amendment Bill 2025, Bill number 2 of 2025. Public business, government's business.
Honorable members, the Assembly will continue debate on the motion for the approval of the estimates of expenditure for financial year 2025. The first speaker today is Deputy Leader, the Honorable Dr. Asher Kissoon. Honorable Member Dr. Kissoon, just give me 1 minute. Honorable Member Ms. Ferguson, displays are not allowed. I had to end last night with cautioning you, and the first thing this morning, it's another caution. We will know when to call on the House to take action. Honorable Member Dr. Kissoon.
Thank you,
You may
Mr.
commence.
Speaker, for this opportunity this morning. I must say the opposition has really made me feel welcome because this House is witnessing a case of pot telling kettle that his bottom is black. These are the same colleagues who squatted in government for 5 months after the no confidence motion was passed. So they are free to do whatever they want to do. Mr. Speaker, the culture of vindictive politics must come to an end in Guyana. A national budget is meant to unite us, not divide us. Is it so unheard that a member of opposition could agree with government on something in the budget? Are there no longer free thinkers who exist in the opposition, with the exception of my colleague Gita Chandan? Is it so unheard of that a government could present a budget to us and we agree with what's in it? We need to do better. Over the last few days, we've heard the words friends, families, and favorites. When will we stop victimizing the hardworking people of Guyana? There have been hundreds, if not thousands, of contracts given in different varying ministries in government. And these are persons who have worked hard, put in their bids, irregardless of which party they voted for. Now they're being victimized by our opposition by accusing them of being favorites of government, and that's the only reason they're doing work in our country, to build their own nation with their own hard-earned taxpayers' dollars. I would like to recognize that this is unfair to them, and we should not victimize our Guyanese people by accusing them of being friends, favorites, and family for the hard work that they are doing. I now humbly offer my input to the 2025 national budget. Honorable Minister Ashni Singh and your team, the hard work and dedication put into this budget has been recognized. A budget of this magnitude had to take hours and days and nights of hard work, and I thank you very much. To begin, I would like to commend the government of Guyana for the strides taken in the right direction. I'm particularly impressed by the housing programs, agricultural projects, expansion in healthcare, and all the development that I see happening. As a medical doctor, I must commence here. I commend the steps taken to bring specialization hospitals in Guyana. With the advances in gynecology, pediatrics, medical imaging, and particularly something dear to me, the new oncology center that is being developed. Cancer statistics have risen drastically globally, and Guyana should not be left behind when it comes to comprehensive care, including palliative care for our citizens. The cervical cancer screening vouchers have helped thousands of women in Guyana, myself included, and this initiative must be recognized. To the Minister of Health, I thank you for doing this for us. There are now ultrasound care centers, and there are advances in laboratory services. The healthcare vouchers have played a pivotal part in many lives, and they have helped many people. The new $10,000 voucher is also there now, and it will help persons. But, Mr. Speaker, I must say I have a vision that one day, with the advances in healthcare in our public system, that we would come to a stage where we do not even need vouchers, where our public health system will be so self-sufficient that we could cater to all the needs of the citizens of Guyana. But in the meantime, this initiative is welcomed and accepted. I need to bring light to an issue that has come to my attention. I'm sure everyone here has noticed at some point or the other there are persons on Facebook, not many of them, who seek medical funding and assistance for certain surgeries, neurological surgeries in particular, that are not offered in the public health system. I'm making a request that we have budgetary funds allocated for them to assist them in the meanwhile, while systems are put in place in Ghana so that we can do these surgeries in the public health system. It shouldn't be due to the consideration of a minister or somebody who is willing to help them with funding, but have them be catered for in the budget. As a young woman, I'm pleased to see progress being made by the Ministry of Housing and Water. I look back to the period of 2015 to 2020 when I saw 7,000 house lots being distributed. And I compare it to now in 2025 after listening to Honorable Minister Crowell's presentation yesterday, where we saw 41,000 house lots being distributed to this day right now. But 50% going to young people between the ages of 21 and 25. These are tremendous strides that are being made for the young people of Guyana. I'm going to take this unique opportunity to recognize the hard-working staff at GWI who have been working tirelessly for new treatment plants. If I'm only to name a few, they're in Ondernemen, Parika, Parfait Harmony, Commons Lodge, Bachelor's Adventure, Caledonia, Wakenham, and these are only a few. These are treatment plans that will benefit thousands of people in recommended. Honorable Speaker, land is one of our most valuable resources. Yet young people are sometimes locked out of opportunities due to bureaucratic hurdles and financial constraints. I urge this House to consider reducing the minimum age for applying for government land from 21 to 18. I'm aware that this is an issue that has been debated many times, but young people should have the right to invest in their future early and contribute to national development. To make this a reality, the government could consider introducing interest-free loans for first-time young landowners, backed by state guarantees, and further subsidize land pricing for youth applicants. We're building a great nation for them, and they must be given the means to participate in that process. We must raise independent thinkers, motivated young people, hardworking young people. We don't want to raise our children to remain in our homes until they're 21. It's not fair to make them wait 5 years after finishing school to start the process of owning land and building. Everywhere I look, Mr. Speaker, there is development. Buildings are being constructed, new housing schemes, drainage, and most importantly, beautiful roads and highways. With the beautiful vision of a developed Guyana, being headed by the Ministers of Public Works, I would like to see more attention given to contractors who are tarnishing the name of our beautiful country. Mr. Speaker, a very wise man said to me that if there is one drop of fecal matter in a tank of water, nobody wants to drink it. This being said, to the Ministers of Public Work, Honorable Indar and Edgehill, I urge you to be the disinfectant in your sector. We cannot have contractors doing work that is not up to par for the Guyanese people. Attention must be paid to the quality of work being carried out. Continue to do the amazing work that you do, but disinfect your tanks. Ensure that we get what we pay for. Ensure that contractors are held accountable and complete quality work for the people of Guyana. We have seen an increase in the cost of living, and without doubt, the government has taken several steps to curb the effects on our population. One of the most direct ways we can ease the burden on our citizens is through further subsidization of fuel. Reducing fuel costs will only create a ripple effect. Lower transportation costs, the price of goods, and making life more affordable for Guyanese households. While the current budget has made steps in reducing the cost of electricity, we must go further to ensure that fuel remains accessible and more affordable for all citizens. I do look forward to the promising measures that are being implemented in the Gas to Shore project. Another way to ease the burden of the cost of living for us is in the education sector. This point was actually raised by my honorable colleague, Dineshwar. Few people know this, but I had the privilege of going to school in Africa. I lived there for 8 years, and I benefited from a school feeding program. There, from nursery to secondary, all children are catered for, are fed 3 meals a day and their snacks. I believe that here in Guyana, we can afford this for all grades, for all classes, for all schools. The ripple effect created by this is tremendous. School kitchens create mental employment, nutritionists, cooks, staff, collaboration with the agricultural sector, where there's school gardens, and you kindle the love for gardening with the children. This is something that can be considered. Yes, we are the food basket of the Caribbean, and we can afford to do this for our children also. In our blooming oil economy, the focus I've seen in the non-oil economy has stood out to me. With more than 10% economic increase, the agricultural sector has been a paramount part of this growth. Reducing duty on agricultural equipment, expansion of the agricultural sector, aquaponics, prawns, and countless initiatives. As the economy grows, parents stand up and everybody wants their children to be lawyers, doctors, engineers, to work in the oil sector. But we have a unique opportunity here, Mr. Speaker, to bring back the love of agriculture for the youth of Guyana. This is where the hemp industry comes in. With the historic passing of the legislation, and I must thank the Honorable Zulfikar Mustafa for this. He has made history here in Guyana with the passing of the hemp legislation. We must now support Guyana's hemp industry, which is projected to bring billions of non-oil funding into the economy. So much interest has been shown by the youth in Guyana in hemp, and it is an ideal opportunity to bring young people back into the agricultural sector. Not only to focus on planting of hemp, but also into the processing and producing of end products. With its hundreds of uses and medicinal benefits, Guyana can only benefit from this. Mr. Speaker, a nation's greatness is measured not only by its economic prosperity, but also by its compassion. If we are truly building a modern and just society, then the humane treatment of animals must be a priority. Non-governmental organizations have been tirelessly working to care for mistreated animals, yet receive little financial backing from the state. The Ministry of Agriculture could play a part in this. I must acknowledge I've seen the initiatives taken by the First Son to raise funds for NGOs helping animals and welfare for animals. I've seen non-governmental organizations doing work, but in our Guyana, our oil-rich nation, we should move towards having a state-owned veterinary clinic or hospital where care can be given to our animals, where we take care of our animals also. Moving on, Mr. Speaker, I recently learned that we have approximately 95 endangered species of flora and Guyana's blessed rainforest has tremendous opportunity for tourism and contribution to our economic growth. We play an important part in the world. in bringing awareness to this, and we must lead by example on a global scale. Honorable Speaker, there are commissions formed to protect our wildlife, yet many lack adequate financial assistance to carry out their mandate. I humbly request that more attention be paid to this. I want my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren to be able to experience these endangered species as I have growing up. So, Mr. Speaker, bringing attention to these few issues, I now have my conclusion. And my conclusion is a special message. As we come to elections, I need to remind government and opposition that our only mandate is to work for the people of Guyana. We must unite. We must come together. And this budget helps us to do that. Let us support the good measures put forward by the Minister of Finance. Let us support the good initiatives. And where there is disagreement, let us come to an agreement of improvement and not divisive politics. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker and honorable members.
Thank you very, very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker, Dr. Kissoon. And now for our dear Minister of Parliamentary Affairs and Governance, the Honorable Madam Gail Teixeira.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Speaker, and my colleagues in Cabinet and my colleague, particularly Minister Ashley, for this wonderful budget. Before I start, I must recognize and acknowledge and congratulate Dr. Asha Kissoon for the comments she made today, particularly her last comment. There was a time in this country when the PPP offered critical support to the PNC, highly controversial, where we said we would support the good things and we would criticize the bad things. Of course, we were told by Mr. Burnham that they were the Bolsheviks, meaning the majority, and we were the Mensheviks, meaning the minority. So yes, Dr. Kissoon, it is a time for a form of critical support again. It will help to move this country even faster forward. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2025 is an example and a product of inclusion and participation. And why do I say that? I've heard people talking about inclusion, participation, on the other side. But the private sector, and a critical component of any economy moving forward, any country moving forward, have all come forward in public statements supporting this budget. And further, saying they contributed to it. They made proposals and recommendations which are included in the budget. So we hear, we listen. The community meetings, there's not one day in this country that there are ministers not out in the field. Thousands and thousands of community meetings have been held, meeting people on the road in terms of looking at what has to be done, development of communities. And we listen. People say they got a problem with the road, they got a problem with drainage, they got a problem with the health center, they got a problem with this. And we listen and we incorporate their views and suggestions into the budget. The point is that we are there physically, we're accessible, we're visible, and we are listening, and not just listening, responding to that. And this is what you call a responsive government, a critical component of democracy as well. And Mr. Speaker, you know, we have much to talk about. There is so much and not enough time, as you know, Mr. Speaker. 35 minutes is not a long time. But everywhere we go, I am probably one of the oldest members of the Parliament. I hate to say it as a woman, but what can you do? But everywhere we go in Guyana, there is progress. I go down roads sometimes, I know landmarks, I don't know always the street names in some areas, and suddenly I don't recognize where I am. Can you imagine we're having 11-story buildings? We were told for decades, you can't build more than 3 stories in Guyana, you can sink. There is progress, and obviously, when you have progress, you have to deal with some inconveniences. When the roads are being built, dust and traffic congestion and so on. Unless there's some discomfort along the way. Everywhere you go, there is progress. Schools, health centers, roads, buildings, houses going up, what do you call Airbnbs going up. It is unbelievable. And I want to say something which for the younger generation you might not appreciate. What I remember by 1992, but our beautiful Guyana was looking dismal, broke up. Everywhere you went to communities, houses weren't painted, they were falling down. There were people living, 20 people in a house, cousin, auntie, granny, in-laws, with 1 yard tap and 1 latrine, 1 toilet, outside toilet. And so when you look at now the housing programs and the conditions under which people are living and the dignity, one of the most important things for human beings is to have dignity. And when a woman or a man or a couple gets a house lot, it gives them collateral, it gives them security of tenure, it allows them to own something in their own right. It is liberating. And you can't put a price on that, Mr. Speaker. You can't put a price on that. Not only are you living in better conditions than you were before. Mr. Speaker, one of the things, how have people reacted to this budget? How have people reacted? And I wanted to tell a little amusing story. You know, we all have WhatsApp and we receive messages from all parts of the country. And one far interior area, I got a message the other night saying they'd had a discussion on the budget and they were all excited about it and looking forward to it. And they said they're going to vote for the PPC, of course. But one of the jokes of the whole thing is that they were delighted about the $100,000 for each newborn baby produced by a Guyanese woman and man. And that very night they were going to start working on that project. So $100,000 for every newborn baby, $1.3 billion it'll cost. The fact that people are also looking forward to the $10,000 per child in terms of income tax, that they're non-taxable. So those that have 5 children will have $50,000 a month, times 12 months, you calculate it, of being able to deduct from your income tax. These are things that people are welcoming. The $100,000 moved to $130,000 for the threshold, costing about $8.5 billion in the budget, adds another 22,000 people to not be part of the tax net. That's in addition to the ones last year that came off the tax net. The changes in income tax from 28 to 25 and so on are important. And I leave that to the specialists to deal with those issues. But all these measures is to make life easier for our people. Make life easier, less stressful for our people. And so, Mr. Speaker, due to my time, I will try to keep moving as quickly as possible because I want to get all my bits and pieces in. Mr. Speaker, I have heard some very sanctimonious arguments in this House. That, you know, some people are holier than thou, who suddenly can hold up integrity to the world, that they're so virtuous. Well, maybe sometimes we have to remind people who maybe have amnesia, or they suffer from some kind of dementia in terms of losing their brain cells. But, Mr. Speaker, one of the things that we have to remind people about, my colleague spoke about elections. And if Mr. Jones, who asked for evidence, I produced for him the report of the Commission inquiry into the general and regional elections on March the 2nd, 2020. 2020, this is the most recent one. The most recent one, where they said this was one of the most brazen efforts to steal an election. It's 2020, so I don't have to go back to 1968, 1973, 1978, 1980, 1985. I just got to go 4 years ago. So, Mr. Speaker, they want evidence? Here the evidence. Mr. Speaker, let's remind the APNU AFC, because I want to separate the opposition from Ms. Dr. Kissoon, who is not part of APNU AFC. And they're rude and disrespectful to walk out on the Deputy Speaker of this House. No respect for women. Y'all come to this house over and over and talk about women, but you disrespect a woman being a Deputy Speaker in this House. Disrespect. For what? Mr. Speaker, the opposition continues to suffer from myopia, short-sightedness. I keep telling Frank, Dr. Anthony, do something. Help them get their sight back. But it seems they can't work on it. It is congenital. It is congenital. But let me remind my friends on the other side of the house in APNU AFC. Amila Falls. Some of you talked about electricity and cost of living. Let me go back to Amila Falls, 2013. We're in Parliament. Despite meetings with the former Leader of Opposition, Mr. Granger, and his team, at Office of the President, with President Ramata, including inter-party discussions between the PPC and the APNU AFC, including agreements that they were going to, in the second round, support the laws that would allow for Amila Falls to go through with the funding. They defeated it twice. And Mr. Speaker, if that project had gone through, that's 11 years ago, you know, we would have had more electricity, less blackouts, and it would have been reduced. The cost would reduce. Mr. Speaker, if we go back to 2013, Reuters, they said, and we lost the funding, the company pulled out because, and I'll just quote one part of it, of the article of August 12, 2013, Reuters, a planned 100 million, you couldn't have known that 11 years ago. You got Farsi? Use Farsi? I know you got short-sightedness. A planned 100 million IADB financing deal required unanimous parliamentary backing for legislating, creating the environment protection for the area around the site for Amila Falls, and raising government loan guarantees to state-owned companies. And you defeated it twice. It went round, you defeated it. Second time you defeated it. Again, short-sightedness. Mr. Speaker, short-sightedness. We had the issue of the anti-money laundering and countering the financing terrorism bill. Defeated once, defeated twice in the Parliament when we were in minority between 2012 and 2015. What did that lead to, Mr. Speaker? We were grey-listed by CFATF. We were grey-listed for FATF for 2 years. And you know, Mr. Speaker, when they got into government in 2015, they bring the same bill they've been opposing in the Parliamentary Select Committee, and which they defeated twice in the House, bring the same bill back here and pass it. Mr. Speaker, vindictiveness and small-mindedness doesn't move a country forward, doesn't help develop a country. You, in your own, have held back, you and the APNU AFC, held back the forward movement of this country. You have taken anti-national positions against the people of this country. And you know, as one of my colleagues said in the debate, that how is it that every time the PPC is in government, this country moves forward, even in the most difficult times? I don't know if our jug is good. Maybe our aura is good, or we got good juju, but somehow when APNU gets in there, the country starts removing. Mr. Speaker, they talk of inclusion and participation and transparency, yet they signed the agreement with Exxon on October the 16th, 2016. Secret. When the media asked, when the opposition, which was us, asked about, we had heard there was an agreement, denied, up to the budget debate of 2017, they denied there was such an agreement until it was exposed in the media. Then they had to admit that yes, there was an agreement with Exxon in 2016. One that has been criticized in the press all along, but you cannot at this time reverse it. This is hypocrisy at the highest level, Mr. Speaker. And you come here to this house in this debate, and you cry crocodile tears. I shouldn't say crocodile, it's caiman. You cry caiman tears in this country. My colleagues have referred to many of the scandals with procurement. Durban Park, Sussex, Street Bond, COVID-19, the way in which the drugs and medical supplies, while the Minister of Health was ensconced at Ashmin and right in this building dealing with elections. Mr. Speaker, we know what her priority was. Mr. Speaker, they say they didn't have oil money when they were in government, so they couldn't do the things that we're doing. Well, Mr. Speaker, let me remind my honorable friends on the other side. There was money left, a lot of money left. This was in '92, when we were the third poorest nation in the entire hemisphere, Western Hemisphere. We were with Haiti and Bolivia, poorest. We were the most indebted. We started to breathe and unravel what they'd done from 1964 to 1992. It took us years. We had to go through hurdles with the IMF and the World Bank and everybody to make us credible again, to make us be able to have money. Mr. Speaker, just say, before I get into what I want to say, I remember when we sat down one day and talked about a national housing program, and we would start with estate land, plantation land from Gaisuko not being used. We sat there and we started to look at which area could we try with. Realized we had no money to do the infrastructure. We had no money to be able to, how do we help people? We went to the World Bank and IDB, and they told us, yes, we can lend you money for housing program, but you have to ask the people buying it, to pay the market value of the land. Mr. Speaker, in '92, 61% of our people were living below the poverty line. 61%. 61%. We had malnutrition in this country. I know about it. Right in Georgetown, Mr. Speaker, right in Georgetown, I saw for myself children with kwashikor, red hair, not like mine, and big bellies, not like mine. Children in Lodge, in Albois Town, with malnutrition in this country, and severe malnutrition, living in an abject poverty. And you come here and play sanctimonious with us? You think we have no memory? You think the Guyanese people have no memory? Mr. Speaker, let's talk about, did they have money or not? Were they starved for funds or not? Well, let's do some reminding. Mr. Speaker, you know, gold, we're a gold-producing country. And, in fact, there are documents to show the Bank of Guyana assets of the amount of gold that we left in the gold reserves. Gold reserves are like your savings in case of a bad day, a rainy day, you got a flood and you can't, and the country's in crisis. You kind of dip into your gold reserves, but your gold reserves are what you really protect. And you never sell your gold on the world market at low prices unless you're in a really bad situation. Mr. Speaker, there was $15 billion left in the gold reserves of Guyana in 2015. Mr. Speaker, it went down. It went down, according to the Bank of Guyana, in 2019, December, to 635 million, according US dollars. 635 Guyana dollars, sorry. 600, from 14.2 billion, so I said 15. In 2015, that's what they did. Where the money gone? Where did the money go?
Good question.
Mr. Speaker,
Good question.
never accounted for. Mr. Speaker, and I'm not exaggerating. If my colleagues on the other side want to do their own checking, could you go to the Bank of Ghana Statement on Assets and Liabilities, published in the Official Gazette on May the 30th, 2015. Mr. Speaker, the same source will show you in February 29, 2020, 3 days before the elections, that the gold reserve held less than $1 billion. That is 635 million. But more than that, Mr. Speaker, more than that, and what is wicked, what is seriously wicked, is that wicked, yes. In fact, they did not tell the people that in fact they had undervalued these accounts to let people think there was more money there than there was in the Bank of Ghana assets. They sold our patrimony. The gold reserves of our country is our patrimony. Guyanese, every single Guyanese patrimony. It is there to help us as a people. So they said they didn't have money. So where did the $15 billion go? Mr. Speaker, we also have, between 2015 and 2019, the budget, when added up, was $1.2 trillion. So they're all excited about the $1 trillion we have now. But they had, in the 2015 to 2019, 1.25 billion. What did they do with it? Where is it? What is there to show for it? At least Burnham could say he built Susdike Highway and he built the Demerara floating bridge. They can't say one project. Not one project is a legacy for them in government. Not one. Not one.
Tell them.
Mr. Speaker.
They did nothing.
Mr. Speaker.
They did nothing.
They
did nothing.
Mr. Speaker.
Nothing.
Mr. Speaker, you have the foreign reserves, the foreign currency reserves. Foreign currency reserves in 2015 was over $700 million US dollars. In 2020, it was about $200 million US dollars. Where the money gone? What did you do with almost $500 million US dollars? Not in the budget, but reflected.
They did nothing.
So don't tell us that you didn't have money. When we came into government in 92, we were so in debt as a Minister of Health. My budget was about $200-300 million. Ask Dr. Frank Muller, he's now in the billions, 30 billion, billions. Mr. Speaker, that was hard guava season in 92 to 97. Very hard guava season to run a government that had a collapsed health sector, a collapsed education sector, a collapsed infrastructure. No money had been spent on drainage and irrigation for 10 years.
Collapsed everything.
Mr. Speaker.
Everything was in collapse.
Mr. Speaker. And you know, they hold up their tenure in government. But you know, if when I was Minister of Home Affairs, had 2 riots in Camp Street that led to the havoc that took place, I would have been booted out by Alial. But Mr. Speaker, what is the legacy of AFNU FC? Your legacy is 2 riots in Camp Street that led to pandemonium, to people dying and being moved to Lusignan under the most inhumane conditions, and embarrassing us as a people that the United Nations Working Group on People of African Descent came and went to Lusignan in 2017 and 2018, and they condemned Lusignan as inhabitable, inhuman. That's your legacy. That is your legacy. And it is we who've come in, and Robeson gave a report on what we've been doing with Lusignan and the prisons of this country. You tell me about integrity. Oh, please, don't think this is the modern world. This is a modern world you can Google anything you want. Mr. Speaker, you tell me about integrity. But from the time the Integrity Commission Act came in, and you had to make your declarations, the opposition, whether you or your previous oppositions, have not been declaring to the Integrity Commission for decades. Why? Why?
That's correct. Let him explain.
Why? So take shame off your face now and come clean. Take shame off your face and come clean. Mr. Speaker, we came in 2017 to this House, October the 5th, 2017. A motion signed by the now President, who was a young member of Parliament, and myself. The motion proposes to stimulate the economy and reduce poverty and hardships in the 2018 budget. This is just before. This motion, we tried to have debated. It was debated. Of course, it was defeated, because every motion we brought to this House was defeated. And Mr. Speaker, I asked the opposition, because it's a long motion which exposed the level of decline of this economy in a few years. In a few years. Mr. Speaker, you know, we're not an old democracy. We're a young democracy. We have gone through hell and high water to reach where we're at today. Democracy is fragile at its best, even in advanced democratic nations. We are a young democratic nation. And so it's fragile. And when the economy is treated in a certain way, as they did, then how is there to be progress? Let us go, Mr. Speaker. So I advise you, go back to the 2017 motion, moved by a young MP called Mr. Irfan Ali, and signed by an older MP called Gail Teixeira on October 10, 2017. And by the way, if you read this, you will see that we kept our promises. We made recommendations. And those are in the budgets from 2020 to now, as we evolve and rectify, fix what you unfixed and damaged. Mr. Speaker, the opposition, I was quite delighted to see that PNCR putting out people first and at the center of our development agenda 2020, and this is your manifesto for 2025. Now, Mr. Speaker, you know, it's very interesting what they came up with in 2015 to 2020 as their strategy. What this is. Basically, Mr. Speaker, there's been no movement at all. No movement. They throw out, we're going to give this, we're going to give that, we're going to give this, and one of them, it says, we're going to give Guyanese people, every household, $2 million. I think that's what they said. Mr. Speaker, I was at the National Park for May Day in 2016. I was the opposition rep speaking at the National Park with the trade unions there, Patrick Yard and all of them. And Amna Ali, as a minister, a high-ranking minister of the government, a high-ranking executive of the APNU AFC, promised the people, all the crowd there, every household will get $1 million out of their old money. Where the $1 million gone? Never produced. And now they come back. Now they come back and talk about $2 million. But Mr. Speaker, what is most disturbing is that they haven't learned. They haven't learned. They're not dealing with it. You have to, in order to spend money, you gotta make money.
That's right. That's right.
In order to have money, you have to spend money, you have to invest money. Money has to circulate. Giving subsidies without agriculture, housing, infrastructure, you are building on quicksand. And this goes back to exactly the same formula of 2015-29. We're going to give you and give you and give you. Read, is there an economic thing in here? No. It just openly says, yeah, we're going to develop, different places and stuff like that. But nothing for the farmers. You say you're for the working people. Nothing for the farmers. Nothing. They're talking about economy now, and agriculture, and information-based technology, and tourism. I'm not talking about just handing out things. The last time you were in government, your formula for development was tax, and more tax. And you depended on tax to bring in revenue so that you could so-called develop the country. Well, you taxed, and as I refer to the motion there, 2017, it shows the amount of tax you were making. However, where did it go? Again, I ask, where did it go? It cannot be explained. Not one legacy project, not one. You're telling me the Independence arches, which were donated by the private sector, is your legacy? That they're all over the place? Mr. Speaker, the manifesto, this is the 2025 manifesto, is devoid of any economic strategy.
Totally devoid.
Totally devoid. And Mr. Speaker, you know, this is when you read it, you feel sad. I feel sad. Because I can say as a politician, they got nothing to offer. And they don't, really. But I also feel sad as a Guyanese that a party that says they got 217,000 votes in 2020 have come with such a hackneyed, myopic approach to the economic and social development of our country. It's sad. It's really sad. I would like to have seen my friends on the other side raised to the occasion. This country is moving forward like never before. Never before. And if they don't see it, it's a problem. Because the rest of the Guyanese people see it every single day. They see opportunities. You had the money from Norway, the agreement with Norway to do with carbon credits, 200 odd million US over 5 years. To build a mila, you threw it away. You never used it for the indigenous communities. Where it gone? And you rejected. You said you wanted consultants. You always like consultants. And the consultants said to you that a mila was the most ready and viable project to move forward. And you dismissed it. Mr. Speaker, you know, development is an interesting thing. And maybe we should, as a people, have more discussions on development. But Mr. Speaker, when we build the Harbor Bridge, the Demar Harbor Bridge, that new, spanking new bridge that's going up, we can all see it. Not like how it was being done under my former colleague over the other side, which has led to procurement, a commission of inquiry, etc., court cases, etc. But when that bridge goes up, you see, we look at a bridge and think, oh, it's our infrastructure. How the people can benefit? The people not going to benefit. They can't eat concrete. That's what you say. That's what you say on your websites and stuff. Mr. Speaker, when that bridge opens, it will do many things. Many, many things for the people of this country. All the massive projects. While they're being dealt with, jobs. It creates manufacturing, transportation. It creates a whole activity around it. Secondly, of materials and men and machines, that is phenomenal. This is a legacy project. But including that, for the people, what does it mean? If you live on West Coast and you want to come to Georgetown every morning to reach work at 8 o'clock or to reach school at 8:30, you gotta leave home 5 and 6 o'clock. So it means people will benefit from time. They have less time, less stress. It'll lead to greater economic activity between not only Georgetown and Region 4 with Region 3, but also Bartica, Essequibo, because that is the route how you get there. Transportation links are critical for development. Moving goods and services quickly, moving people quickly. That is what is important. We talked about the Bartica connection with what was called El Condor in the old days, between what is Purica and going towards Bartica. When that road opens up, the interior will be a different place, and moving goods and services between the interior and the capital. This is the future of our country. Why are you so blind? Why can't you understand? Why must you be so tainted that everything you dissect? It's okay to criticize and say, do it better. But it is such, you give off such negative vibes. There is nothing good happening in this country, according to you. Nothing good. Mr. Speaker, if we take that project as an example of development and all the things, the World Bank says very clearly in 2024, its report of development report, it says very clearly that a country to adopt what is the fastest way, one of the fastest ways to develop a country, is to adopt new technologies and digital instruction industries, ensuring continuous economic expansion with rapid infrastructure and to drive rapid growth. Mr. Speaker, if we go along canter, little bit by little bit, like how you all think you've been doing it, we would never reach where we need to reach. Mr. Speaker, infrastructure, as I said, is a major catalyst to develop in our country. It also encourages investment, encourages young people. They're in school and they're going to do CXC. What do I want to be? Well, if you don't have no big thing going on, they'll never be charmed by it. They'll never be excited about it. Now people in 5th and 6th form can say, what I want to be. I want to be a doctor. I want to be an engineer. I want to be a scientist. What do I want to be? And we are providing the means through these programs in the budget, education, health, to help our, and goal and all these things, to help our young people reach their dreams. And there's no rapid bullet for dreams. You can't go through it. But there is hope. One of the fundamental issues of oil-producing countries, one of the fundamental issues they have to encounter is economic diversification. All those countries that have had first oil in the developing world, many of them have fallen into the trap that you suddenly become dependent on oil. Mr. Speaker, we were heading in that direction in 2018 and 2019. It was all about oil. Agriculture was left, flounder as it may. Rice, sugar, mining, everything was in decline. And the stats are there to show it. Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister, what is in decline is your time. You will need an extension to complete. You have 5 minutes, Honorable Minister.
Okay.
If you look at the GTE project, they killed a miler. We are starting back a miler, but GTE, the largest project in this country, the largest and most expensive. And we've said in our budget that when this project is commissioned, 50% of the consumer costs will be reduced. Do you have an idea what the impact that is on every family of Guyana? Of every family on a monthly basis? Of their purchasing power being increased? Mr. Speaker, one of the things with economic development and also targeted infrastructure, we have been very clear and strategic in what infrastructure we're doing. Because targeted infrastructure not only increases economic activity, but enhances economic growth, it reduces inequalities, and it improves public service delivery. And we can give example, roads, electricity, water, for example, and the diversification of our economy. So we're no longer oil country dependent on oil, because oil in there all the time, you know. Oil, it comes to an end. It isn't there forever. It may last till X period of time. Look at Trinidad. It was on a good wicket from 1960s. Oil gone, oil dry up. They have they're one of still the producers of the natural gas. So, Mr. Speaker, our friends need to go in a room somewhere and try to figure out really what they stand for. Are they for Guyana? Are they going to support a local carbon development strategy that is a comprehensive national strategy in terms of our environment, our climate, indigenous rights, women's rights, etc.? Mr. Speaker, one thing, when we look at social capital, how can we tell a country is moving forward? Cell phones. You know, cell phones is mostly in Georgetown. Go into any interior village and community and see how many cell phones are there. And what is the connectivity that we're doing with Starlink and ICT hubs and so on. So that the people, the country is connected. We're being connected for the first time. So people in the interior, we are removing the digital divide and inequalities. So cell phones is a good indicator of what's called social capital and improvement in people's quality of life. TVs, televisions. 1992, hardly anybody had a television. Televisions. Cars. 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 In the 1980s, cars were tied up with rubber band and all sorts of things, because you couldn't get no foreign currency to bring in parts for cars. But now, cars, ATVs, motorbikes, electric bikes, electric cars, these are indicators that there is progress, that people's purchasing power has increased. Not a small group, not a small group. When drivers come to work, it's an indicator that things change. That is an indicator. And I could point to many ministries where the drivers of ministers, the drivers working in the ministries, come to work in the ministry in a car they own. That is the filter down effect. That is the filter down effect on ordinary people who don't make what you say are big salaries. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, APNU AFC needs to wake up and smell the roses. Whether you're there or whether you support or not, this country is moving. Nobody's going to stop it now. She's got our beautiful Guyana, our blessed nation, has got a taste of progress and movement forward. People have a taste for the future, hope, optimism, and they ain't going to want it reverse at all. So you better wake up and smell the roses. Because if you're on the wrong side of history, you'll be on the wrong side of our nation once again. Once again. Mr. Speaker, our country's on the move. And let me just say one thing. If there's one group of people on the move, is the women of Guyana. 40-odd% have house lots. 40-odd% have ownership in shade houses. Women are becoming contractors in the construction industry. 365 got contracts out of 1,000 contracts or more. We are not getting taken left, comrade. We're not taking left, and we don't care who says what. We have houses, we are putting our children in school, and as one woman told me, I got my house, and if any man be bad, I could put you out. I don't have to depend on no man anymore. So it is a liberation of our women, empowerment of our women. The empowerment of our Armenian villages has never taken place like this. $4 billion of carbon markets went into indigenous communities. 30,000 solar panels went to 30,000 families in the interior of Guyana, landings, mining landings, and so on, to give people light. And you think, so what? But if you don't have light, how do children study? How do teachers study? How do people learn what is going on? Light is illuminating. And for the interior areas, it allows children to have a future. As I said, APNU AFC has to decide, which side are you on? Progress, development? Or are you going to continue? And we all know the answer to that. Unless you have a revolution or coup inside your group, which I know will not happen, that or do you want to continually be in this position of holding back progress of our country, of being the spoiler? You're a bunch of spoilers. Because when Chagan took up critical support, we supported the foreign policy, we supported things, and we criticized you for rigging elections. You are incapable of bringing up a critical support. That's what we did. Holding back progress, holding back, and trying to holding back people's progress. You know, the Guyanese people have seen it, smelt it, seen change, and they want more, and they will get more under the People's Progressive Party Civic. So, Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for thank you very much, and for our people, and all our people. As an older member of my government and party, and an older member of a member parliament, I am so proud of where Guyana is going. I knew the hard days. I am so proud and so honored to be able to stand in this house and talk about how we are moving forward. And we are not going to allow any reversal. No more 2020 experience. That is not going to happen in Guyana. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, Gail.
Thank you very, very much, Honorable Minister Teixeira. I'll hand over to Deputy Speaker.
Honorable members, I now invite Honorable Catherine Hughes to make her contribution.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to start with a very special welcome to the bright and beautiful faces I see in here of these young, the future generation of Guyana. We are happy to have you students here with us today. And I know we've got them on both sides. I also want to start with a moment of serious reflection. I want to extend sympathies to the family of Felicia Ganesh. I was driving to this parliament this morning and heard a horrific news story about Felicia Ganesh, the mother of 8 children, the smallest of 7 children, the smallest is 8 months old, being hacked to death by her partner. I'm sure later this evening more of us will hear that. And I offer sympathies to the family. And I say to the former speaker in this house just now, that we as a people can always do better. And that is the message that I want to give today. We, when we are in government, must always do better. Because although she spoke about women being able to walk out and throw the man out, the reality is we have to provide more systems to ensure Felicia Ganesh does not end up where she is today. Mr. Speaker, distinguished members of this honorable House, I rise today to address the 2025 national budget with a commitment to constructive dialogue, recognizing the commendable efforts of the staff at the Ministry of Finance and even the gentleman with responsibility for finance, not the minister, but with responsibility. And I'm saying that I want to highlight some of the areas that we must strive for improvement. But first, I want to start with an examination of how certain parliamentarians approach the business of discrediting each other through falsehoods that leave the lingering impression that malfeasance has been committed when in fact it has not. This may be attributed in no small measure to the opening statements in the Honorable Dr. Ashni Singh's presentation. The Honorable Member there comes a time in the life of any nation when the distortions of truth must be met with clarity of facts, lest our history be rewritten by the most strident voices, those empty vessels, and not by steadfast truths. Today I rise to address yours and that of the PPPC's oft-repeated preference for twisting narratives for political mileage, a practice that threatens the very fabric of our democracy and the intelligence of our citizenry. Madam Speaker, it was most unfortunate that getting all excited about the possibility of a truly transformational budget that would bring, I quote, from secure, prosperous, and a sustainable Guyana, that Guyanese, and worse yet, a few potential international investors who were listening earnestly got a strong dose of cost-down politics for the first hour. This has come to define this honorable minister, and Madam Speaker, there's a beautiful word called mendacious. Defined, let me quote Oxford Dictionary, as not telling the truth, lying, mendacious propaganda. On page 2, a mere few minutes into the speech, referring to 2020, when they came to power, we find some mendacious propaganda. I quote the minister, Guyana found itself in the unprecedented throes of a resurgent government and economic calamity of the pre-1992 vintage. Mr. Speaker, I lament having to do this over and over again, but I have to do it to clear the air so my Guyanese brothers and sisters know truth from fiction. This year I refer to another of the IMF's press releases, number 19 of 332. And this is what in 2019 the IMF said about our economy that the minister claims was a calamity. Guyana's economic growth strengthened from 2018 with broad-based expansion across all major sectors. Real GDP grew by 4.1%, led by construction and services, up from 2% in 2017. Inflation remained at 1.6% at the end of 2018. What's the inflation rate this budget says? Over 2? Okay. Public finances improved in 2019 as the central government deficit came in at 3.5% of GDP, lower than the budgeted 5.4% of GDP. Public debt and the external current account deficit are projected to decline steadily following the onset of oil production. Check your facts, Guyana. Check your facts. Mr. Speaker, well, another piece of mendacious propaganda is found on page 24 of the budget speech, paragraph 482. History would record that the Amila Falls project was derailed by the APNU AFC, and you heard the majority of the most honorable member of the House that spoke before me, who has been in our parliament for decades, regaled us of the opposition's strike against the Amila Falls project. I want to remind Guyana and the public, every time you hear them say the opposition killed the Amila Falls project, and that's why you don't have electricity today, I want you to go to the IDB report. Let me read what it says. Amila Falls GYL 1035, technical briefing, March 20th, 2014. Management is seeking guidance from the board proceeding with the Amila Falls project, given that, and we accept, the project offers Guyana a long-term friendly, climate-friendly, renewable solution for its energy sector by introducing the first significant diversification to its energy matrix with potential fiscal and balance of payments benefits. So we never had any attempt to change the energy mix in the previous 23 years. However, this is what IDB says. IDB's NSG loan would entail a credit rating of RC7 which exceeds the risk tolerance as defined for all NSG products. And the bank has never approved a loan with this rating. Guyana Power and Light GPL, the sole off-taker, has a weak credit profile, bracket, poor operational, financial and technical performance, high energy losses, fuel volatility, tariff uncertainty, and uncertain hydrology. The IDB did not want to approve the loan. It is right here. Mendacious propaganda. Mr. Speaker, then there's additional mendacious propaganda when they refer to the 18 million sign-in bonus, a subject that has been tossed around recklessly with reckless abandon by those on the other house side of this chamber. They have sought to sow confusion and mistrust, insinuating impropriety where none exists. The record will show, the history will bear witness that under the APNU AFC government, this signing bonus was responsibly placed in a designated account within the Bank of Guyana. Its purpose was as clear as daylight: to safeguard our nation's interests in the ICJ case concerning the border dispute with Venezuela. People of Guyana, Madam Speaker, it was calculated then that the patriotic decision was rooted in the understanding that our sovereignty and territorial integrity required not only words but financial preparedness. Where then is the impropriety? This narrative of missing funds is nothing more than a straw man built to distract us all from the current administration's own shortcomings. I want to refer this parliament, I'm not going to read it, but I want to refer the people of Guyana to the parliamentary sitting in December 2017, when former Minister Carl Greenwich stood here and laid out the facts. And in addition to that, we know that there exists a receipt for the money that went into the bank account and also into, see it big there, received, you see it? The documents are there, Guyana. So the majority of the members on the other side that come with the same old mendacious propaganda, you know who's telling the truth. Mr. Speaker, we are a mature nation, and I applaud several of the measures and principles in Budget 2025. Any program that attempts to share more of the people's wealth with the citizenry, Madam Speaker, I support. Madam Speaker, we are now making 65 million Guyana dollars an hour from our oil and gas industry. And much of these measures to ease the cost of living are absent from this budget. Madam Speaker, the high cost of cost of living make our citizens drown. And we all know that this is undisputed. Everyone in this house knows that hundreds of thousands of families feel it every day. It is against this background that I say 1.38 trillion, yes, is the largest budget ever. But this budget highlights that largest isn't always best. Madam Speaker, with national discussions estimating that the minimum wage should be between 100 and 150,000, a pension of 41,000 just does not cut it. Too late and can't help. Mr. Speaker, the cries from persons in our communities who have been struck off the public assistance list is of concern. Worse yet, that in this Dubai-rich economy, we've only allocated a $3,000 increase. And Madam Speaker, what does $3,000 do? I am aware of a very good friend who has a 16-year-old paraplegic daughter. And to take her to the Diamond Special Needs School costs $4,000 a day. $4,000 a day. Madam Speaker, what I'm highlighting is that Budget 25 may be building all the fancy bridges and roads, but it's not putting more money in the pockets where it's needed more. Where is the people-centered approach? Where's the balance between infrastructure and the ever-increasing high cost of living? We have a responsibility to carry as many of our people as it is possible to a better life. Mr. Speaker, it is clear that prosperity in Budget 2025 will be delayed, as we know it is once again heavy on infrastructure projects and short on investment in people. The increases in the income tax threshold, adjustments on personal income tax, and the modest reduction in the VAT rate are great, but all have little impact on the lowest of income earners in Guyana, but reinforces that the expansion of those that have. Mr. Speaker, we are aware that oil discovery and the advent of an oil economy raises expectations. Naturally, citizens expect more spending and increases to their wages. The rapid redistribution of wealth and income takes place, which in turn widens the wealth gaps. This we see happening in Guyana today. Unfortunately, this can easily result in the collapse of the foreign exchange rate, leading to foreign exchange rationing and shortages, which we've already heard complaints of from the private sector. Madam Speaker, high inflation, high food costs, and emptying of the sovereign wealth fund are all now our realities. Property costs increase, largely driven by the demand for housing by foreigners. But this drives up prices, making home ownership and rentals almost impossible for a large section of our population. Already this budget identifies a drop in our overall growth to 10.6%, a result of the expected decline in oil prices. And the one-man show, Oil Czar, has already stated, just a couple days ago, it was a headline in our newspapers, I think it was on Sunday. Yes, the one-man show, Oil Czar, has already stated that oil money is not guaranteed next year. Imagine that. Especially in light of planned increased oil production in the US under the new Trump administration. These are therefore economically unpredictable times and highlights the challenges of an economy overly dependent, and one considers that all did better in 2024, really productive capacity. It is against these indicators now very visible in Guyana society that we expect Budget 2025 to distribute more to Guyanese citizens who face to meet the challenges of everyday cost of living. Mr. Speaker, even the two most interesting easing of cost of living measures, electricity and the cash grant program, are fraught with challenges and clearly highlights the PPP's Jaganomics approach to development. This is defined in the litany of failed economic projects to a favorite of the most honorable Vice President. These, of course, include the failed Skeldon plant, the infamous use of NIS funds for the Berbice Bridge project. Now he wants another bridge, the failed fiber optic project, the consistent failure of Gaisuko, and the Amila Falls project, to name a few. On the power generation front, the government is hanging the transformation of the economy through cheaper electricity costs on the finalization of the Gas to Shore project, now costing the taxpayers of Guyana $2.4 billion, a cost increase of more than 200% and counting. Today, no one knows for sure when the project will be completed, what the total cost will end up being, and if indeed the cost of electricity to the consumer will be reduced by 50%. But at the same time, we are considering a second project. Madam Speaker, what is most worrying about Budget 2025 is that there appears to be no overarching development policy within which sits all these economic measures. The current state of the cash grant program is testimony to this. Madam Speaker, in July of 2024, when the AFC again proposed the transfer of oil monies to citizens, and I must say our partners, the APNU, also have had the same philosophy, Vice President Jagdeo stated that this was impractical. Vice President Jagdeo stated, July 26, 2024, it is impractical to give Guyanese money. The article is right there. Vice President Dr. Bharat Jagdeo, you know I told you about his Jaganomics theory, stated on Thursday that the recent proposal made by the Alliance for Change leader to transfer the Guyana oil revenues to citizens is not only impractical, but wholly unwise. Well, guess what? Guess what? Guess what? From July 2024, we went to deciding in November we were going to give 200,000 to each household. We didn't know how many households, and then we changed it to 100,000 per person, and we still got thousands of people that ain't get anything. Of course, we now know that, Madam Speaker, savings of missions of this budget is the high cost, Madam Speaker, one service omissions from this budget is the high cost of unorthodox practices of dubious legality. The Big C, or Guyanese know it as run-ins. This is demonstrated in the 600 million plus above the engineer's estimate for the construction of one of the blocks for the Schooner Highway. Then there's the award of the contract of nearly 900 million for a pump house to a company with no prior or relevant experience. Madam Speaker, in these two examples alone, we are talking about $1.5 billion of the people's money squandered. How could we have a project that is 600 million above the engineer's estimate? Imagine if we are building, Guyana, imagine you building your house and the engineer tells you your house gonna cost $30 million, and then they're gonna increase it to $100 million. You gonna wanna know where the extra money going? The whole of Guyana wants to know where the extra money is going. Do you see how we could find fiscal space to pay the teachers, the nurses, all the other public servants that need a livable wage? We will do that when we return. To the Honorable Minister of House, to the Honorable Minister of Health, please note the massive runnings I am referring to. Let me remind the Minister of Health of these contracts. We heard your presentation yesterday, and really, you should not throw stones if you live in a glass house. Mr. Speaker, Guyana is now an oil-producing nation. This industry is driving our economy, and it is all education and is driving employment. But how can we hope to fill these jobs when some 69% of our young people are failing CXC maths? Look at the indicators right there in the budget. Look at the indicators for the post-secondary education. Madam Speaker, gross enrollment rate at TVEC institutions is 1%. And at tertiary institutions, it was 11% in 2024. And the government is hoping to bring it up to 15%. Mr. Speaker, in an economy driven by industrialization, we cannot have our young people pursuing technical and vocational education because they are not passing maths. What we want to say, what we want to do is ensure all students have a sound education of all the core subjects so that they can really be in a position to make a choice of what they want to do with their future. We hear a lot of talk about textbooks. Oh boy, we giving textbooks. Well, guess what? In the hard times of the 70s when I went to school, I used to get every single textbook. We were instructed to wrap it good in brown paper, look after it, and we made sure that the students coming after it had a nice, good quality textbook to use. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, unfortunately we have been regaled in this House that the APNU AFC government never built one school. I have to correct that piece of mendacious propaganda. It keeps coming up. In her hysteria to promote this untruth, the Minister of Education conveniently omits the monumental disaster that defines her. Let me remind you guys of the Cato Primary School. Started in 2012. The contractor work began in 2013. Was supposed to be completed in 2015. And in 2018, the school was declared unfit for use. $850 million later. But guess what? It was finally completed by our APNU AFC administration. I had the pleasure of going to that opening. In the final analysis, that school which defines the Honorable Minister of Education cost this country $781 million plus a further $140 million to fix. Do not forget that. But what is interesting is they talk about nothing happening in the Burnham days. All the negative information. Guess what? Madam Speaker, according to the Ministry of Education's document, Revolutionary Departures in Social Economic Development, I want to tell you about this number of schools built, renovated, and built, extended, and renovated between 1970 to 1979, the lean years. There were 17 nursery schools, 25 primary schools, and guess what? 26 nursery schools. I know the minister might forget because maybe she wasn't born prior to 1992. We built bridges. We built glassware. We built stoves. We built fridges. We assembled our own cars, radios, rice, sugar, grew potatoes, planted cotton, made our own fabric. I say this for the young Guyanese so they know the strong history you come from. Mr. Speaker, let the record of this House show that in Region 7 alone, primary schools were built in Camarang, Cato, and Baimadai, Parima, and Ederingban by the same coalition. I want to go to roads and infrastructure. Madam Speaker, the budget allocates $209.3 billion to this. But we know the challenges with cost overruns, knocking off project managers, stopping contracts. While the emphasis on infrastructure development in this budget is undeniable, on the ground the reality paints a far less optimistic picture. A staggering 43% of the national budget is allocated to capital expenditures, which appears impressive at first glance, with projects like the replacement of the Demerara Harbour Bridge. But Madam Speaker, what is the reality of some of the work that has actually been done
Honorable member,
on the ground?
in order to tell me what the reality is, we need an extension, please.
Thank you. Comrade Speaker, the students are wondering where the catwalling is coming from. That is a government minister who's making that song. I do ask that the honourable member be given 5 minutes to conclude.
Granted. Please continue, honorable member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to say to the House that in several places, and we saw it on Facebook being shared by a young lady with regard to the road at Mahaika Market. And this is the reality in many areas of Georgetown, where asphalt roads, like the one that existed in Thorn Drive, is being changed from a 16-foot wide road to a 12-foot pathway that does not allow 2 cars to pass. The people of Tuckville are worse off for the road they got. Mr. Speaker, I want to mention a few things. The Minister of Home Affairs yesterday spoke about, 2 days ago, spoke about all the police stations, new ones, all the cars that we're importing. Well, guess what? We had, during our time, a higher level of police officers that had integrity. Because when he's looking at the cars that are being imported, guess what? Police officers are the bandits. Some police officers, the renegade police officers that they're doing nothing about, are the bandits. They're the petty drug dealers, and then they're the cocaine smugglers. That is the reality. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that we all know that this budget does not provide a livable wage for pensioners or for a single parent mother. I will not go through the numbers as I'm short on time, and we have clearly showed how the budget of a family with 3 children can come up to close to $320,000. And if we assume that both parents are making that $130,000, you see that they start off with a deficit. That is the reality that this budget doesn't deal with. Mr. Speaker, I want to go now to addressing some of the challenges that, some of the work that has been done in the telecommunications industry. And the Honorable Prime Minister, I'm so glad you're here. I compliment you because you are continuing the policies of our innovation, industry and innovation unit that I started and we started under the Ministry of Public Telecommunications. I do want to say though that with liberalization, there was an expectation that the cost would fall. And a lot of companies in the sector are saying that the 45% increase in the cost of spectrum, that cost has not gone down, so they're not benefiting. Mr. Prime Minister, if you look at your same indicators, only 2 ICT companies were opened up. According to the indicators in the same budget, feel free to check it, only 2 in 2024. So you got to question how this liberalization is working. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, you know, we've had a challenge. Some more mendacious propaganda has surrounded the concept of rigging, and we hear it all the time here. We hear us talking about the PPP, up new AFC. We don't hear us talking about Guyana enough. And when it comes to rigging, there are a few things I want to say in closing. Let it be clear, Madam Speaker, only GCOM is responsible for the holding of elections in this country. It is interesting, and we had a meeting with them last week. GCOM has not done an internal review yet of the last election. They have not attempted to sanction their staff that were involved with those 47 boxes on the East Coast. Madam Speaker, we talk about the international observers. GCOM has up to now not reviewed as a commission one of their recommendations. They've not reviewed any, and they started talking about biometrics last year when the country was talking about biometrics. Mr. Speaker, I hope that the next time around we can have a little more maturity, that we might sit as a people on both sides and talk about this budget, not now for the first time, but as a meeting. And the Honorable Gail Teixeira talked about the former presidents meeting together. That's the spirit within which this budget discussion should take place before we get in the House, so our recommendations might be included. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much to the people of Guyana. Better will come.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I now call on our Honorable Attorney General, Honorable Anil Nandlall.
Madam Speaker, it is my privilege to make my contribution to this year's budget debates. And I want to begin by welcoming all these students who are here, because I will make many references to you in the course of my presentation. You heard the presentation of the honorable member who spoke before me. And you would have heard the honorable member, use the term mendacious throughout her speech. Mendacious means lying. It's an unparliamentary word. So because you can't say lying, they say mendacious. And let me just, for one moment, just one point I want to make. The honorable member stood there and told us that we must do better when we are in government. And she stood there and she said that the honorable Prime Minister and our government continued where she left off in the telecommunications sector. So they went to the elections in 2015 with a manifesto which included a 100-day plan. 100 days, they told the people, they told your parents, vote for us, and within 100 days, 100 days, just a few months, we are going to do these things. Let us deal with one issue to demonstrate the mendacity. And the issue is at number 19, the promise, within 100 days, liberalization of the telecommunications sector. 5 years after, there was no liberalization done. The Honorable Prime Minister and our government in 2021 liberalized the sector. That is why you have so many internet providers, you have so many cell phone providers, and you are young people. You are using these facilities, and you know that you are only able to do it a few years ago when we came into government. That is the mendacity and the mendaciousness that we are speaking about. And I can stand here and go on for a long, long time, but I don't have the time. But Mr. Speaker, I want to come to the budget itself, and I want to begin by recognizing and acknowledging the work of the Ministry of Finance headed by the distinguished Dr. Ashley Singh and all the public officers across the state sectors who would have worked assiduously in compiling yet another comprehensive, transformational and sustainable national budget. And I'll come back to the term sustainable later. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, we have heard day in, day out that the budget has nothing for the people of Guyana. But the simple truth is that this budget will inject into the economy of Guyana, a small economy of less than 1 million people, $1.6 trillion. That's what the budget alone will inject into the economy. When you add that to foreign direct investments, local private sector investments, the impact is going to be staggering on every single Guyanese, except the losers on the other side. The losers on the other side. You heard the honorable member, we are building highways, we are building roadways, we are building a Demerara Harbor Bridge that will be about 100 feet in the air. She brings one street. One street. And she shows the children the mendaciousness. She produces one street. We are building thousands of roads. You come from various villages across this country. You come from various villages across this country. And I say to you that wherever you are living, my children, wherever you are living, the streets in your communities are being built. Wherever you are living. But you heard her for yourself. One street. One street. That my people, that my children, is the mendacity that we are speaking about. Mr. Speaker, speaking at the lower end of the batting order gives me certain benefits. So I will not, a lot of information has been put out there already on the budget. The parliamentary record is inundated with data of policies and projects in the budget. And I don't wish to retravel those grounds. But Mr. Speaker, later this year, all of us in this house will be coming into your villages, and you are too young, but we will be asking your parents to vote for us. Later this year, all of us will be asking you to do that. And I want to speak to the electorate from the platform of Budget 2025. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, there is a direct correlation between these budgetary estimates and national elections. These budgetary estimates are not sterile, they bear a relationship. Because when we come back, when we go to you, your parents, when we go to the people of this country later this year, we have to demonstrate to them that the promises that we have made to them in 2020 have been delivered. We have to show them that it has been delivered. And once we show them that they have been delivered, we will ask them to return us to office. And that is what they certainly will do. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, electoral politics is based upon two important pillars: trust and track record. Trust and track record. You see, when you go to the electorate, you're asking the electorate to vote for you. And once they vote for you, you will deliver these promises. So they're trusting you because you're not in government yet for that term, but you're telling them, give me your vote, and this is what I'll give you back. You're asking them to trust you. And one of the main ways by which they can determine whether or not to trust you is by examining your track record. The human being is not a robot. The human being is informed and is guided by his experience. And therefore, track record is important in that trust relationship. So, Mr. Speaker, we have two parties, main parties in the country that have spent, one, the PNC, whether they are AFC, whether they are APNU, they are one and the same thing. They are all PNC. You heard the Honorable Member, Cathy Hughes, an AFC member, because she couldn't point to developments and accomplishments during the last term in government. She had to go back to Burnham. Gone back to Burnham, and you will read and your parents will tell you what Burnham did to this country. But I don't want to detain you on that issue. But they are the same thing. And then, so they governed for 30 years or a little over 30 years since independence, and the PPP governed for just under 30 years. So, Mr. Speaker, I now want, so you have a lot to examine on the track record. You have 3 decades of track record from both political parties. And Mr. Speaker, we heard a lot about good governance. We heard a lot about transparent governance. We heard a lot about constitutionality and the rule of law. But none of these attributes, as important as they are, none of these attributes can exist without a simple thing: free and fair elections. They can't exist without a democracy. Democracy is the sine qua non of all those important attributes. And Mr. Speaker, the right to vote is perhaps the most important right to the citizens of any country. Because if you take away that right to vote, you deny that citizen of every other right. Because a governor who is elected, who takes power without the vote of the electorate, will remain in power because he doesn't need the vote of the electorate, and therefore will do as he or she pleases. So all the other rights will never be realized. Your right to speak, your right to move, right to access justice, all of that will be interfered with. Right to education, if you don't have free and fair elections. So let us examine the track record of the two parties on the question of free and fair elections. This is where I wanted to go. I had to travel a little circuitous route before I reached there. So we went, as you know, you are bright children. In 1966, we got independence. And we went to our first election in 1968. The PNC was in government. And they passed a law. They passed a law that allowed for overseas voting. and 1/5 of the persons who voted at those elections were overseas. They voted overseas. And a British television firm did a documentary, and they decided to follow the trail of the voters. And they went to London, and they went to all the places that these people were allegedly voted. And they videoed cemeteries, dead people, nobody lived there. They went to the houses, the addresses. They went to the addresses, and they asked the people who were living there if they know Tom Samuels. The people said, Tom Samuels never lived here. We have been living here for 50 years. You know what they did? They sat down in Georgetown, compiled a list, and voted for 36,000 people in the United Kingdom. 36,000 people that don't exist. And you know what the results at that time? At that time, today, we have 65 members of this house elected. In those days, in 1968, it was only 42 members of the house. Only 42. And listen to the results. The results were the PNC, out of a total of 42 votes, 42 seats, they got 30 seats. PNC got 30 seats, more than a 2/3 majority. They took 30 seats. The People's Progressive Party got 19 seats. And the UF got the remainder. 30 seats they took at those elections. And at that time, the PPP base was in the majority of the voters in this country. So you understand the magnitude of the fraud? You understand the magnitude of the fraud? And we were a young nation. That is the first scar they inflicted on the democratic tapestry of this country. We were only 3 years old, 2 years old as a country. 2 years old, and they destroyed the democratic credentials of this country. And they laid the foundation of what was to come. 1973 elections followed. It was worse rigged than that one. Worse, they used the army this time. Because of the exposure to the overseas voting, they had to find another mechanism to rig. This time, they used the army, and the army officers went to all the polling stations and picked up the ballot boxes and took them to 3 central locations, one in Berbice, one in Demerara, one in Essequibo. You were not counting at the place of polls, you were counting at the central place. So when the army picked it up, what they did, they threw away all the ballots in the box, and the army officers marked the X next to the palm tree, the PNC symbols, whole night. Whole night.
What you call them, mendacious?
Mendacious. That is fraud and trickery and artifice of its highest level.
Rascality.
And Mr. Speaker, at that time, we had 53 seats in the House. 53 seats. They took 37 of the 53 seats. 37 seats they took. Another 2/3 majority. You know what they gave to the PPP? They gave to the PPP 14 seats. The mighty PPP got 14 seats in 1973, when the PPP base was 50% of the population. Led by Dr. Chetty Jagan. Let us go to the 1980 elections. 1980 elections, again, 53 seats. Oh yes, and Dr. Anthony is reminding me, at a village on the Quarantine Coast, when the army went to pick up the boxes, two young comrades, among others, blocked the soldiers from taking away the ballot boxes. They say you're going to steal our ballots. And you know what the soldiers did? They shot those two men. One was 18 years and one was 24 years old. And did not take them to the hospital, but threw them on the back of a pickup truck and went all the other polling stations to pick up more ballot boxes while those men bled like animals in the back of a pickup until they died. That is what. So I am so happy that you are here to understand your history. So let's go to the 1980 elections. The 1980 elections, there were 53 seats in the parliament at that time. 53 seats in 1980 elections. The PNC took 41 of the 53 seats. 41 of the 53 seats. They gave the PPP 10 seats. The mighty party of Jerry Jagan got 10 seats. And the UF, the Speaker's party got 2. He lucky get 2. TUF get 2. And then we come to the 1985 elections. You know, they say they had 2 presidents. One President Burnham and one President Hoyt. President Burnham presided over those elections. Let us hear what Mr. Hoyt did. You know, he's regarded as a Democrat. He's regarded as a Democrat. So let us see what Hoyt did in 1995. In 1985, out of 53 seats in the parliament, they got 42. They got more than in 1980. 42 seats. You know the PPP got? You know we got? 8. 8 seats. 8 seats. And the WPA got 1 seat. That was the massive nature of the rigging and the fraud. And today, they want to lecture us. We must do better when we are in government. That is what they did when they were in government. That is what they did. I'm coming to 2020. And then we had free and fair elections in 1992. And it was not an easy task. We had to drag. The international community had to get involved. The Carter Center had to get involved. And Mr. Hugh Desmond Hoyt, the president, had to be dragged by the scruff of his neck like a bull to the slaughterhouse before he agreed to the reforms. And then is when we get observers for the first time. None of these elections had observers. They ban observers. Then is when we get counting at the place of polls for the first time. So it became hard for the thief, for the Mendes. Hard for the rig. So, and then we went to the 92 elections. We got 31 seats. They got 30. You saw the results changed completely? Right? And the WPA got 1. And the TUF got 1, I think. That is what free and fair elections did. You see how we moved from 8? We moved from 8, a measly 8, to in the 30s in 1 election. 1 election. That is what democracy had brought to this country. And then we had the 1997 elections. We brought back foreign observers. All over the world, people came here and observed. We had 2001 elections, 2006 elections, 2011 elections. Those are the elections we presided over. And all were certified to be free and fair by the international community and the world. And you know what's the margin? Was just a few seats margin of difference between the PPP. They win by 20 and 30 seats. We won by 2 or 3 seats because that is what reflected the reality of the vote on the ground. And that is what we did. And then all of you would know about the 2020 elections. All of you would have read about the 2020 elections and the multiple attempts to rig those elections. I am so happy that 2020 came to refresh your memories. And what was different about the 2020 elections is that it was recorded on the social media. So everything that they did was streamed live across the globe. You could have been in your home and you could have seen them in their multiple attempts to rig. And you know what's the beauty of the social media? Every year it brings back the images as a memory. So every time you plan to forget how they tried to rig the elections, badam on the Facebook, it comes back as a memory. It comes back as a memory, and you see the madness all over again. But forget about the 100 governments that condemned her for their conduct. Forget about CARICOM, the OAS, the Commonwealth, the private sector, and all the international organizations that condemned them. Forget the American government threatened to sanction them. Forget all of that. Forget what the PPP say. Let me share with you what a man by the name of Gaskin, what was his first name? Dominic Gaskin. Now, who is Dominic Gaskin? Dominic Gaskin was a minister under their government and a leader of the Alliance for Change. He was Minister of Business. And he was also, or he is also, the son-in-law of the then president. So he's not an ordinary man. He got familial connections to the highest office, and he was part and parcel of the collective called the government of the day. And this is what he said in a public statement, and I will share it with you. Convenient clips. Having said what I had to say back in March, and having then stayed silent for 3 months while a recount was agreed, challenged, and finally executed, I can no longer wait quietly and politely while our country gets hijacked, ridiculed, and torn apart. You know who was doing the hijacking, the ridiculing, and the tearing apart? His colleagues on that side. In a nutshell, there are 6 things that I would like to elaborate on concerning the 2020 elections adventure. 1, a win by either major contestants ought not to come as a shock to anyone. Fair comment. 2, supporters of APNU AFC were misled into believing that the coalition had won the elections. Misled! Just like how she attempted to mislead you for 35 minutes. They were misleading the whole country. 3, there was then a deliberate attempt to discredit the entire elections. When they couldn't rig it, they then decided to discredit it. 4, no evidence has been provided to support the claim of vast numbers of rejected ballots among the disciplined forces, let alone the allegation of a deliberate attempt to invalidate the votes of the disciplined services. 5, no power on earth, let me repeat, for the opposition leaders' benefit. No power on earth can convince the APNU AFC leadership that it lost the elections. No power on earth can convince them that they lost the 2020 election. Up to now, they're not admitting that they lost. 6, all that occurred since March 4th will make it extremely difficult for the APNU and AFC to ever defeat the PPP in 2020. It's not I saying so, it's their own saying that about them publicly. That's correct. That's correct. Let me skip. Having paid close attention to the tabulated results of the 2020 election and having done some projections of my own, I knew by Wednesday, March the 4th, that a coalition victory, while possible, was unlikely. March the 4th, the Alimana already know they lose. They knew even before. I was aware that we had lost the east coast of the Amarara sub-district by several thousand and the East Bank sub-district by close to 1,000. At the time, the returning officer for District 4, Claimant Mingo, had completed the tabulation for Georgetown area, showing the coalition ahead by nearly 40,000 votes. This was clearly not enough to close the more than 50,000 lead that the PPPC had gained in the 9 other electoral districts.
That mendacious woman who just spoke was claiming victory.
Then the recount came. The nation puts its faith in the CARICOM observer team. In the end, the CARICOM team delivered its report endorsing the elections and the results of the recount, only to have it rejected by the coalition in favor of a devious piece of reasoning by the chief elections officer, Keith Lowenfield. The claims of fraud were grossly exaggerated and unfortunately designed to fool party supporters who had placed their faith in the coalition into believing that there was actual evidence of serious election rigging by the PPPC.
Being perpetrated by the mendacious woman who just spoke. One of them.
All of this leads me to the very uncomfortable conclusion that the APNU AFC has no intention of relinquishing control of government. 5 years after winning an election and gaining office with a fair amount of goodwill, the coalition is saying to the people who put us there the equivalent of, quote, unless and until we are satisfied beyond a shadow of doubt that more votes are cast in favor of another party in an election than we deem credible, we ain't going nowhere. So no matter what the arbiter thinks, no matter what the judge thinks, no matter what GCOM does, no matter how the people voted, if they are not satisfied, they ain't going nowhere. And let me conclude. My message to my colleagues in APNU AFC is simple. How? The man begging them. The man begging them. This was since 2020. They had 5 years to heed the man's advice. Hear the man saying, my message to my colleagues in APNU is simple. No one elected us to remain in office forever. There is no reasonable basis on which you can claim to have won more votes than the PPPC in these elections. Level with your supporters and start directing your energies towards becoming a credible opposition party in time for 2025. Above all, try to regain the trust. Remember, I began this speech by the word trust? I began this speech by the word trust. Above all, try to regain the trust of the swing voter. You will never win another election without them.
Heed those words.
They have not learned anything. Nothing on that side.
Instead, the mendacious woman.
Honorable member, I require an extension for you to complete your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to ask that the honourable member be given 5 minutes to conclude his speech.
Thank you. Please continue, Honorable Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, I go quickly. You have heard them make promises after promises. Promises after promises. They document it in a manifesto. Remember I told you about trust? And my colleagues on this side have already set out a slew, hundreds if not thousands of promises that they made that they never fulfilled. But let me deal with a couple. Let me deal with a couple related to my sector. This is what they said. Constitutional reform. Constitutional reform. They promised the people that within 100 days they will complete constitutional reform. The APNU AFC will immediately, you are bright people, immediately appoint a constitutional reform commission consisting of representatives of all stakeholders, trade unions, the private sector, religious and faith-based organizations, women, youth, professional organizations, and the university. Its mandate will be to undertake the urgent task of fashioning a comprehensive reforms for the Constitution. Hear the lineup? Women organization, faith-based organization. And guess what they did? They appointed what they call a steering committee headed by one Nigel Hughes, the husband of the member who spoke and the leader now of the AFC. So you see the connection. They appoint Nigel Hughes to head a group of about 4 persons. Geeta Chandan, the honorable member, another PNC, new person was on the thing. Remember they promised independence, broad-based. They had Haslin Paris, another member of the PNC on the committee. And they had 2 other token appointments. And they paid $20 million. $20 million to this group.
Who they paid that?
They paid that to the gentleman in this picture. Look at the Kodak moment. There's a handing over. There's a handing over of a phantom report that none of us, nobody in this country has ever seen. And 5 years after, not a single step towards constitutional reform. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, I come to this one, and this one tickled me. This one tickled me a little. Dr. Singh, hear this one. Powers of President and Prime Minister. That is the caption. Powers of President and Prime Minister. And hear what it says. Rebalancing, rebalancing the powers and responsibilities of the Prime Minister and the President in a manner meant to reduce abuse, avoid conflict of interest, and facilitate the more efficient execution of state function. When I read this, I want to cry for Moses Nagamotu. Oh my God, look how we all promised him. Not only did you fool the people, this is how you fool your own Prime Minister. You tell him that he gonna get great powers. And all he end up with is responsibility for Chronicle newspapers. The most diminished Prime Minister on planet Earth. That is what you promised. Let's go on. This is another one. This is an interesting one too. Dr. Singh. They promise that they will agree on a protocol to break the deadlock over the appointment of a consensually agreed Chancellor and Chief Justice and bring an end to this impasse. They will devise a protocol to break a protocol. You can't stop them with language. A protocol. Not an amendment to the Constitution. No, it's a protocol. And you hear the opposition leader, the People's National Congress reform. A protocol. Where is the protocol? Where is the protocol? And this one is particularly relevant to the Parliament. This is what they said in relation to Parliament and the National Assembly. This is what they said. Mr. Clark, I will ask you, to the Speaker, I will ask you to comment on these at a later stage. They will appoint, now all of us know that we have a Parliamentary Management Committee comprising of 5 on that side and 5 on this side. But that, according to them, is not working. This is what they promise. Appointing a Parliamentary Committee dedicated to making recommendations for the continuing reform and improvement in the working of the parliamentary system. Where is that committee, Mr. Clark? Where is that committee? Let me go on quickly. They will appoint, and again the language.
Member, I'll give you 30 seconds to conclude, please.
Yes, they will appoint an in situ parliamentary council, and they will establish a National Assembly Budget Office. An in situ parliamentary council means an in-house parliamentary council. And a National Assembly Budget Office. Mr. Clark, where is your National Assembly Budget Office? Where's your in situ parliamentary council? Madam Speaker, I went through that and I have much more materials to show to the people of this country that they can never be trusted. They are going to come to the electorate later this year, and they will promise the skies, and they will promise the mountains, and they will promise the oceans. But Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, it is all a farce. It is nothing but a three-card trick. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Now is a good time for us to take a break, so we have 1 hour.
We are a peaceful people. Struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble. Just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains. We ain't giving up no tree. We ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one karage, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here, and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere. Make no mistake, 'cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one karage, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo. Take time on it, though we may criticize it.